Welcome, movie fans. Thanks for joining us for episode 111 of Reading Between the Reels, the premier podcast of contractually obligated spinoffs. If you're a new listener, we're so glad you found us. If you've been enjoying the show, please like, follow, and subscribe and review us on iTunes or Spotify. You can also support the show by posting on your socials and joining our Facebook group. I'm Craig Dickinson alongside Justin Eldon. Justin, welcome back.
Been a bit, but yes, indeed I am back.
I'm so glad. So, Justin, what have you been watching this week?
Well, I mean, I think I can go pretty far because I haven't been on an episode, I think, in like 2 episodes. So, so many things. First, Nosferatu. Saw Nosferatu in theaters.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic movie. Loved it. It's not one of those that I think I'd watch again. Like, there are good movies that you're okay just seeing them once. And I think I'm okay just seeing the once. But the acting in there is top-notch. Like, Skarsgård does a fantastic job. Depp, I forget her first name, but Johnny Depp's daughter, like, she does really well. The whole film is just really, really well done. And, like, really, it's just like a beautiful film. But, so super enjoyed that. And then TV-wise, I guess, I just finished streaming on Netflix American Primeval, which was really good. If you liked The Revenant, if anyone out there is a fan of The Revenant, it's very much in the same vein as that. It's really high production value, fantastic acting, and not historically accurate, even a little. Like, some stuff was just straight up made up, like whole seemingly historical events that just never happened. But it's a good watch as long as you're not going into it looking for any sort of like actual history. But it was good. What have you been watching, Craig?
Okay. So I have finally finished Battlestar Galactica, the 2004 reboot. And I really need to talk to Corey about it. I haven't talked to Corey about it, but I'm going to save that and for when he gets back to the show. I should mention Corey couldn't make it tonight, but he'll be back soon. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought they kind of dragged probably middle of season 2 to middle of season 3, and then it picked up really, really well. They really got into a lot more of the mythology at the end and the final 5 and getting to Earth and all of those things. And I mean, minor spoilers for a 20-year-old show. But I think it ended, and I was talking about this today at lunch, it ended in kind of a controversial way. It didn't bother me at all, but I thought it was interesting. There was a lot of questions, and so I immediately had to go online and read, 10, 15, 20-year-old articles about what a lot of people thought about the end, which is kind of fun. It's kind of cool where it's like a time capsule almost, and I wasn't spoiled on something even from that long ago, so... But yeah, I enjoyed it. I'm finally done with it. I feel like I've accomplished something, even if it's just finishing a television show.
Isn't that weird? Isn't it weird that you get a sense of accomplishment from that? Where you're like, I just accomplished wasting my life away.
I mean, it is. I guess it is to a point when it's like it's close to 80 episodes. It's like 78 episodes or whatever. And there was parts where I was like, I'm watching this just to get through it.
Yeah.
Just because I want to say that I have, and then I finally did.
I do hate that. Like, I got to that point if our listeners remember, I was watching Lost and getting through Lost, and I just got to the point where I'm like, this isn't enjoyable anymore. I don't want to watch this. This is bad.
I hate watch stuff sometimes, just so I can say I did it.
Yeah, like, my wife gets really irritated with me though, because
there's no reward.
Oftentimes with books and movies, I won't finish. I'll get to like 95% completion with books and movies, and then I will just stop at 95% because I'm like, I know how it ends. It's fine. I don't need the wrap up. I hate all that wrap up crap. It drives her insane. And that's kind of what I did with Lost. Yeah. Just like, I don't need the last couple episodes. It's fine.
Wow, no, I couldn't do that. Oh wow, yeah.
I know. It's
okay.
It's a problem.
Well, hey, I do want to talk to you and Corey when he's back about the Superman teaser, and we might have even more to go on when he's back. But since the last time that we recorded, the Daredevil Born Again trailer came out, which I think is a pretty natural segue into what we're talking about tonight. Had you get a chance to check that out yet?
I have watched that, and as a huge fan of the Netflix Daredevil series, and as a fan, not huge fan, but fan of She-Hulk, I know. I know it sucks, but I
He's
like
legitimately back now.
it.
Okay.
Anyway,
sorry.
I'm excited. It looks good. It looks like they are going more the Netflix route, and kind of staying in line with that. And I hope the trailers are not messing with me.
Yeah, I too I'm cautiously optimistic. It did very much, like you said, it felt like it was in the vein of the Netflix show. I mean, we even see like a broken bone in the trailer. I mean, it's definitely violent, and it looks like it's taking itself seriously. So, yeah, I'm hoping it's a natural extension of that, because that series was fantastic.
Yeah, especially with the title "Born Again." Like, I guess I assumed that was in reference to Netflix. Like it's being born again after that show.
Yeah.
So hopefully they can keep with like the same grittiness. I know that's not really what the MCU does in terms of like style, but I'm gonna hope that it's at least close.
Yeah. Well, speaking of not gritty, tonight we're talking about Elektra, which is a spinoff of Daredevil, which we talked about it from 2003. So, Justin, I know. I know a little bit what you're going to say, but your overall thoughts on Elektra from 2005.
Well, let me take that very simple question and make it more confusing. I want you to know, little behind the scenes for listeners out there. I feel like when we make this podcast, like we try not to discuss our feelings before the podcast comes out, but we work together. So, it comes out sometimes. But I feel like a good chunk of preparing for this podcast comes in discussions of what are we going to say at the opening, which is the premiere podcast of blank. Like that takes us a long time to create those for whatever reason. And we typically go through several iterations. This time, I positioned one to Craig, and Craig said, no, I already have one. It's the premiere podcast of contractually obligated movies. And just so you know, that came about very quickly, and I think contractually obligated is how I would feel watching this entire film. Like, everyone in it just felt like they were there because they were contractually obligated. Like, I guess I'll read this line of dialogue. I guess I'll make a facial expression. I guess we'll do some fight choreography. I don't know. Like, I guess I'll pretend to express love towards this individual. It's just, the whole thing felt so... like at no point did I feel like I was there. I was always aware that I was watching a production and like watching a film. I did not enjoy this movie. And you know what? I even watched it twice because I knew Craig liked it so much. And I'm like, I'm going to go back. I'm going to give this another chance. And what a waste of time that was. Well, I mean, our podcast is about like finding deeper meaning, right? And I just don't even think there's like surface level meaning. There's not even a shallow end to this movie. Like,
oh, okay. Maybe I can tease some out for you.
Like it's okay. All right, tease away, Craig. What did you think about this movie?
We'll see. Well, I mean, yeah, it's okay. First off, I should mention that this is basically the 20th anniversary of this movie. It dropped on January 14th. So by the time that this drops, it will be just like the previous week was the 20th anniversary, which is kind of fun. I've made no secret of the fact that I'm a huge Jennifer Garner fan. So I may be watching this with somewhat of a bias. But I watched the theatrical cut, and then I watched the director's cut, because there is a director's cut with the audio commentary on. I watched all of the behind the scenes stuff, and there's like 3 hours of the making of this film, and all the deleted scenes and all the documentaries with Frank Miller and all of the things about classic Greek mythology and whatnot.
So you're saying you spent more time learning about this movie than the writers put into writing the movie?
Well, I mean, see, this is ultimately my takeaway, is that Rob Bowman, who's the director of this film, and everybody else that worked on this film, worked really, really hard on this film. And that's not to say that it makes it automatically a good film, but the people that worked on this film were invested, at least behind the scenes, were absolutely invested. They knew that they had a limited budget and limited time frame, and that's one thing we absolutely have to talk about. 62 days of production is all the time that they had. I mean, this is, again, it's 2004 when they're filming this, because it dropped early in January of 2005. So Alias is in full swing, and this is during the hiatus of that. So that's the only time you get Jennifer Garner, and then Goran Visnjic is on ER at the time, and so he's a big TV star. So you've got competing schedules happening between hit TV shows and then trying to cram this thing in. And so they keep mentioning that too. It's kind of funny. They're like, we only had this much time. We only had this much money. I mean, it's a budget of only $43 million after, multiple $100+ million. I mean, when we did The Punisher, that was obviously low budget too. I think a far better movie than this. But compared to Daredevil, they've cut time, they've cut the budget. And, I liked Daredevil quite a bit when it came out in theatrical. I liked it. Obviously, we've talked about it at length. I like the extended edition a lot more. And so for me, it's also like, I like this movie. It's not great, but I like it. But it's also like, you didn't give me a Daredevil sequel, and that's irritating.
So when you grade your students, Craig, do you grade them off of effort or what they're actually able to produce?
Well, it's on the standards. So that really has to be on the production side. Like, what have they given me?
Okay, but
I think my expectations for this were low. So I teach 8th grade. If this is, maybe I'm grading 6th graders. I don't expect as much from them.
Yeah, but there's like a minimum standard. If a student comes to class and they're like, "But mister, I was super busy. I had sports. I didn't have
right.
lunch that day." Like, you can have all the excuses in the world, and I can feel sorry for you, student, but I cannot raise your grade based on your excuses. As much as you will feel sympathy for that student, like, a grade does not reflect effort or behavior. It reflects ability to show a skill set, and this movie showed no skill set.
Well, I will say, intentionally wise, I mean, we did talk about, the budget and the time and whatever, but Rob Bowman also mentioned repeatedly how he set out to not make a big, explosive, big battle. Like, he wanted a comic book movie. He wanted to do more of a character study. He wanted it to be a little bit more stripped down. And so, at least from his perspective, that's part of the reason why this film was not received as well, because it wasn't Spider-Man big third act. It wasn't X-Men big third act. It was just very stripped down character study. So
excuses are like butts. Everybody has them, and they always stink.
Nice. So let me ask you this before we move on to the technical aspects and see if we can pull some meaning out here. This has an 11% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
I wasn't even going to bring that up.
Is that
because I saw that?
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Well, but I wasn't even going to say it because I know how you, as well as any logical person, would feel about Rotten Tomatoes scores, because they don't mean anything unless you want them to mean something. They don't mean anything unless they agree with you.
Well, I mean, it's just, that's what. So 11% of the people said they basically kind of like it. Right? And the 89%, they basically kind of don't. It doesn't factor in how much you like or dislike. It's just a thumbs up, thumbs down thing.
Yeah.
So you could be like, I'm 49%. This movie's 49% good.
See, I think in that case, the 11% works. It's 11% good. That's generous. No, okay. I can't even. I'll put my 2 cents in for the. I have a bad memory, but this might be the worst movie we've ever done on this podcast.
Wow.
But I have a bad memory, so I'm willing to be wrong there.
Okay. So you think this is worse than like Big Trouble in Little China?
Oh, see, I knew you'd.
I love both those movies.
But Big Trouble in Little China was
like, than this, though.
It wasn't meant to be good, I don't think.
It's John Carpenter. It's got a whole different category with John Carpenter.
Just like the whole premise.
I will put my 2 cents in for
the whole premise. Like, okay, we're gonna take one of Marvel's greatest antiheroes, one of Marvel's greatest, most iconic assassins, and then we're gonna mellow her out so much, and we're gonna put her with a moody teenager, and that's supposed to be entertaining. Like, what the
Watch the director's cut. It is better.
I did. That's the one I watched.
Did you watch the director's cut?
Yes.
Oh, you did? Okay. So you got to see the blood coming out of DeMarco?
You can't director cut me on this one. Nah.
Oh, okay. Well,
nothing to hide behind.
Okay. Let's get into the cinematography aspects then. What do we got for composition, color, camera? Are there things that you saw that you liked and were like, oh, that was interesting? I think that meant something.
I'm gonna try really hard not to be snarky throughout this whole this whole episode.
Because I'll throw out when I threw one, like one of my favorite shots is early on that shot of Elektra reflected in DeMarco's glass, and that's Jason Isaac has a brief cameo in this with an American accent, which is kind of jarring. But the shot of her reflected in the glass with the fire flickering in out of focus in the foreground, I thought was really cool, and I thought, especially when you have that whole thing is set up that she's kind of this force of nature, almost kind of ethereal thing, I thought that worked really well to illustrate that. So.
But then they don't really do much with that. Like, she can seemingly teleport and move around from spot to spot. Not teleport, but...
Seemingly, she can. No, she fully teleports.
But then, by the end of the movie, they're like, nah, we're just going to forget that that's a thing.
There's a little inconsistent use of powers, but yeah.
Uh-huh.
They don't say she can teleport, but you see her do it.
Okay. So, the whole movie is very muted, color-wise, I feel. And I don't know if that was in an attempt to make her outfit that she only wears twice kind of stand out. But it was so lacking in color that it was even to the point where, what's that one girl that like kills things with her powers?
Typhoid?
Yeah. So when Typhoid like kisses Elektra, right, and like drains the energy out of her, it's hard to tell that she's lacking color in her face because the whole thing just looks so colorless all the time. The only times with like massive amounts of color was, like I said, Elektra's costume, but also the flashbacks had just... I understand you want to like show that it's a flashback, but it had so much like yellow. It punched the yellow to 11 that I'm not even positive like someone didn't like accidentally like squirt some mustard on the film reel, like on the editing room floor. They're like, oh, let's just go with it. It's fine. We can't redo that shot anyway. Like, Okay, say positive things, Craig.
Okay. I have lots of things that I like. So, continuing with composition and shots, I really liked especially the scene where she's trying to decide whether or not she's going to kill the Millers, and that you see her lining up the shot, and then it's interspersed with these really quick close-ups of them, and then all of the assassination documents. I thought that worked really well, especially along with the music. They kind of build the tension just really, really quick, and then zoom in, hey, she's 13, and all of this stuff. I thought that was kind of an interesting way to put us in her brain as she's trying to decide those things. For me, the yellow was mainly in DeMarco's compound at the beginning, which was kind of a sickly yellow, because yellow is definitely, it's not the happy yellow. It's kind of like a poison yellow, which I think works with the flashbacks as well, because they're not good. Like, this is a thing she has to overcome, and so it's kind of a diseased type of color.
Like a mustard yellow.
Yeah. But on the other hand, compared to like in the pool hall, it's kind of golden lighting and shadows. There's a lot of deep shadows in there, but that's like a much warmer color of yellow, because that's like a sanctuary place for at least a temporary one. And the red thing, yes, she doesn't use the costume nearly as much, but there is one thing that I pulled out thanks to Rob Bowman and watching all the extra stuff, is when she kills Typhoid Mary and throws that sigh through and hits her, which is way better in the director's cut too, because like it looks like she got punched pretty good when she falls. That there's a flash of red light that's on the sigh when it's in the ground, which according to Rob Bowman is a symbol of her mythic ascension, where she's kind of become this other thing.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
So, yeah. So I've always seen it and didn't know what it was, because it's very much a rebirth story for her. And this is kind of her tapping into her full abilities, the whole Kimiguri thing.
You know, from the get-go, just knowing what I really dislike about movies, I don't think this movie had a chance for me, because one of my dislikes among CGI sunsets in films is undefined powers. Whether they're going to straight up tell us or show us, and as well as like magical stuff, like over-reliance on magic without explaining the magic, and I feel like this movie does that a lot. Like, it kind of just... It kind of lets you assume that you know what Elektra's abilities are, and you know what the hand's abilities are, and you know what all of the all the characters, like, what are their abilities. The treasure, that girl, like, we still don't really super know what her ability is, and I don't know, that just seemed like very lazy to me. And yeah, we can point out, like, the ascension to her. What did you say? It sounded good.
Her mythic ascension.
Yeah, her mythic ascension. Yeah, we can, like, assume that, but it never defines that. Like, we don't know that. You had to watch the extras to get that. I don't think we should have to watch the extras to understand a movie.
No, I mean, I agree. I just think, like, the red light should be fairly obvious that something important happened there. What your interpretation of that could be different. I just happen to know what intention was because he straight up told us.
Yeah.
I mean, I did have to, speaking of the powers thing, I mean, it is very vaguely defined. I mean, it doesn't call out the teleporting. Like, that's actually a thing. We just see where she's in places where she would not be able to be. We also see Karigi do kind of the same thing where he's there and then he's not. But, I mean, this is what I have for the list. So, teleporting. So you have telepathic communication, like, force timing in Last Jedi, because they have that thing where she basically calls them out. You get precognition, so she can kind of see things before they happen, and that's how she, saves the Millers. And then you can resurrect the dead.
The precognition, they spent time, like, developing that and explaining that,
and raising the dead. Both of those things are called out pretty clearly.
Yeah, so those things, like, feel good and they feel natural and it feels like there's some payoff because we explained what they were. Because even in Daredevil, and I don't know how much this movie, like, is intentionally trying to connect itself to Daredevil, because there's, like, hardly a mention of that. But in Daredevil, I don't, like, she doesn't have any abilities. No abilities are mentioned. Like, it seemingly comes out of nowhere, all of this stuff.
Yeah, well, see, I get that this only happens after she's resurrected, which is another thing they talked about in the behind-the-scenes stuff, is, like, the biggest problem that you have in this movie is that your main character is dead before the movie starts.
Yeah.
So they have to resurrect her, and it's, like, only after that point that she has this potential for these other abilities.
So, contractually obligated, which, again, is the theme of this. Who was contractually obligated to make this?
Jennifer Garner was.
Like, when she signed up for Daredevil, they said, you got to do 2 films?
Yep. Correct.
And could that have been in, like, it had to be an Elektra film, or could she have been Elektra in someone else's film?
I'm not sure on that. What I have seen is that Avi Arad has, like, shortly after this film came out, like, apologized for or basically said we shouldn't have rushed this out. And this was to, like, stockholders and stuff. Yeah. So,
because I would have loved to see, like, a Daredevil 2. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, that's what I wanted, 100%. When this came, I was like, oh, that's nice. I like that character. I like that actress. I mean, you have, and this is part of the issue too. Like, Alias was always a critical darling. Like, the critics loved it, but I don't think it ever was a ratings hit. Like, it's a hard show to get into, because it is so dense with its mythology, and it ends on a cliffhanger every week and all of those things for the first couple seasons. So if you're a newcomer coming in, it's hard, like the X-Files was. Like, you're kind of in there from the beginning, or you're going to feel like you're playing catch up a lot. So I think that you have this show that's well received but not super popular, and then you're going to make a movie featuring this actress that you may not have seen, even though, the critics like her. So it's a weird mix.
Yeah, and I wonder, I guess I didn't put that in the context of Alias. Like, I wonder how much of this was, hey, she's super popular right now, let's get her face on a movie.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when Daredevil came out, I think it was like the same weekend or weekend right after that, like, she hosted Saturday Night Live, and that's a pretty big deal. And so it was like, and Alias was big, and so it was like, I think that was like during the second season. And so there was this kind of, and like Alias was the show on after the Super Bowl, like that year, or the year prior, year after, somewhere in there. So there was this kind of push to make her a bigger star than she ultimately ended up becoming.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of forces that kind of pushed this out sooner than it needed to.
I mean, even that, like, that Super Bowl ran really, really long, and then there was like an hour post-game show, and then they put it on. So, like, on the East Coast, it came on at like 10:30. It's like, yeah, no one's watching that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I did, because I was a huge fan. And it's a great episode, which we might talk about at some point. But I just want to get back on track a little bit. Just a few more things, camera work. I really do think that the DeMarco scene is great at the beginning. Coming to find out that was actually not meant to be the original beginning, which I think is why there's. But I think it works really, really well for that. You get to see her as an they started with her being resurrected and seeing her trained and all that stuff. I think it works better as a cold open. Lots of close-ups though on his face, and then the bird's eye view looking down at Elektra's soon to be resurrected body, I think was kind of cool. And she jumps straight up to kill the hand. There's a bird's eye view for that. It's a bunch of different, I thought, interesting angles through that. And then I really like that first person scythe slicing through the hedge mage. I think that's cool. So you were going to say something.
Oh, I was just going to go back to what you mentioned earlier. I think the most jarring part of this movie was when Jason Isaacs did not have the British accent. Why do we do that? Just give the guy the British accent. Doesn't sound
he's
right.
so much cooler with it. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean,
and I was a little sad to you got him for the movie, but then you killed him off in the first 5 minutes. That guy's great. Put him in more things.
Yeah, he's not even named on screen. So, yeah, I only know it's DeMarco from watching the extra stuff, and he has a track named after him, like an audio track, music track. So, anything else you have for visuals before we move on to sound? Speaking of music,
I can do a little bit. So visuals, as you know, I like to look up what Roger Ebert says about movies because he was kind of like the big name in movie reviews for a while. He did not like this movie, but he doesn't like most superhero movies, so that's no surprise. So this is what he said, commenting on the fight scenes, but also cinematography of the fight scenes. He says the movie's fight scenes suffer from another condition, attention deficit disorder. None of their shots are more than a few seconds long, saving the actors from doing much in the way of stunts and the director from having to worry about choreography, which I found to be true. I know a lot of people pointed this out when Matrix Resurrections came out. The choreography in that is painful to watch, especially coming from the original Matrix films, because the actors just didn't have time to figure all that out, especially forgot his name. Neo's actor.
Keanu?
There we go. How did I forget that? Anyway, so and I kind of feel that with this, Jennifer Garner, I don't think she knew her stuff super well, and maybe there's some time constraints. I'm not harping on your precious Jennifer Garner there.
Dude, I saw the behind the scenes stuff. They did all of that stuff in camera. So let's blame that on the editor.
It maybe because the editor made it look like there's not enough going on, so I got to make some really quick cuts. But also, if there is something cool, I'm going to use a lot of slow motion to make it seem like this fight is doing more than it actually is. At the very least, if you have a poorly written movie, you can kind of count on the fight scenes to make that up for you. And I think of a lot of action films that I feel that way about. But this one just didn't have that, and it made me sad.
Didn't do it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a lot of quick cuts. I'm not going to argue that. I'm sorry. Kevin Stitt, he's actually on the he's on the audio commentary. I'm just going to keep talking about that extra stuff. He did Lethal Weapon 4,
and then the other thing, it's
Paycheck, X-Men. X-Men doesn't have very good fight scenes. Not really.
No, but that one is more of a character-based movie, but with interesting characters. Whereas this, I don't feel like Elektra is very interesting. I also feel like she's very inconsistent in her ability to fight, because at the beginning with Jason Isaacs, it seemed Isaac.
Yeah.
Is there an S?
Isaacs. Yeah.
Yeah. She seems like this unstoppable force of nature, and then later she struggles to take on 2 or 3 ninjas, and it's she gets a run for her money. I understand at the end she's fighting supernatural people. That's different, but just the regular low tier hand recruits, nah, we should be able to take those people. All right, we can move on.
Okay. Sound. Let's talk about sound. I really do like a lot of the ringing sound of the sighs when they're drawn and when they pierce people. I just think that's a cool sound. And flashbacks are what they are. I dig the echoey flashback stuff. That helps. I think that's a good shorthand for letting us know that things are not normal.
Yeah.
My biggest gripe with this movie, honestly, is that the soundtrack isn't that good. I think it's decent, but it's not memorable at all.
No.
Like the only track I really like a lot is it's called DeMarco's End. So it's like after she kills him, and she throws the sigh, and then it's like this almost rock anthem, like heavy percussion. There's bells and synth, and like that should be her theme, but it's like the only time we hear it.
I really liked when she starts the final fight with Kirigi. What's his name? Yeah, Kirigi.
Yeah, Kirigi.
The music, like the score at that moment, was really good. Like it actually was like, oh man, I feel kind of pumped up about this fight. Mm-hmm. That was the only part that really stood out to me. Like it was pretty fast paced and pretty exciting, and it sounded different enough to get my attention. But it was just ruined by the actual fight, unfortunately. I also noticed with sound a little bit is a lot of times people would speak to Elektra, and then rather than Elektra responding with dialogue, that thing that like humans do, talk to each other, there's just like a wind sound. Just like, hey Elektra, what are you doing over there? And then she just like looks at him and it goes... It's like, no, that's where you're supposed to say something, Elektra. I don't know if they're just trying to like make her sound more mysterious, but when I started noticing the wind sound, I'm like, oh no, this is going to ruin the movie for me. But it didn't. It was ruined long before that.
Well, that's nice. I should mention that there is jingle bells playing, some diegetic jingle bells playing on the Miller's radio, because this is a Christmas movie.
Christmas movie, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Somehow.
Well, it's because what's his name? Mark, the love interest out of nowhere.
Yeah.
He said, didn't he say he was vacationing there for the holidays or something? Was that a thing? Did I make that up? I might have made that up. Also, yeah, Mark. Hey, yeah. Elektra, did you forget about Matt Murdock? Ben Affleck? That guy? Jeez, he's not dead.
No. Well, and they don't really have much of a relationship at all. It's very much a very surface level thing, which I know that was the thing they were trying to be intentional about. So I'm not going to put too much stock in that, but
I think that's something I appreciate about modern movies is modern movies don't feel modern. This is still a modern movie. I mean, movies in the last 10 years or so, they don't feel obligated to put like the two leads together romantically.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I first
Twisters?
noticed that. Yeah, like Twisters or Rogue One. Like,
sure,
you can have an attractive female and an attractive male lead, and they don't have to be involved. They can just
just what? Oh.
Yeah, it's nice.
Pacific Rim was another one that I watched recently that they didn't do that either, which was kind of nice.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to mention just real briefly that this is another one of it's got another Wind Up Records soundtrack album. So Evanescence is back, 12 Stones is back, Jet's back. Not a lot in the actual movie. That's kind of the way they did this, in songs inspired by or whatever. I mean, in the movie, essentially you have Hollow by Submersed that's in the pool hall, which I think is it's actually a remix. We have Switchfoot, which I'm used to be a pretty big fan of Switchfoot, playing on the truck's radio as they're headed to McCabe's house. That's kind of cool. And then over the soundtrack at the credits at the end, you've got Wonder by Megan McCauley. I think she has a song in the next movie that we're going to do as well. Photograph by 12 Stones, and then 1,000 Mile Wish by Finger 11 are the last three that are all featured actually in the film. So, the last thing I would just want to mention too is if you're looking for it, I think you can really find a lot of cost-cutting measures like the opening narration. That easily could have been like a full-on like battle sequence, even animated in another way, where it's basically like a tapestry that's blowing in the wind with just voiceover by Stick explaining what the treasure is and all of that stuff. Like that's the thing that's definitely a cheaper way to do that than to actually have that acted out.
Yeah, I don't think
it's like a 3-minute long expositional dump.
Yeah, I don't mind that too much. That was fine.
I don't mind it either. I just think like, oh, this is a way that you cut corners.
Yeah.
When we can only get this much money from the studio.
Tell, don't show. It's cheaper.
Yeah. Sure. So performance-wise, is there anybody that stands out to you, either good or bad?
I do think given what she was given, Jennifer Garner did pretty well. Like, there's only so much you can do with certain lines of dialogue, and she did a great job. I also really liked, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name, the kind of like the guy in charge of the hand. I think he goes by Roshi. I can't pronounce his name. He's also, if you guys have ever seen Mortal Kombat, like the original Mortal Kombat movie that came out in like the 90s, he plays Shang Tsung. I'm probably mispronouncing that. I like him as an actor. I think he does a good job. And maybe it's because I watched Mortal Kombat as a child and he like creeped me out. Yeah, he's great. Really liked him.
Yeah, I'm going to attempt to say his name because I got it written here.
All right.
Kari Hiroki Tagawa, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, he was also in Man in the High Castle a lot.
Oh, yeah.
He was really good. Very restrained, very different role than he typically plays in that.
Yeah, and his dialogue delivery is a lot of fun. The way he says things. But I'm even just like looking at the cast of characters now, and I'm like, you are all so forgettable. Terrence Stamp, the guy that plays Stick,
love Terrence Stamp.
I like him in some things, and maybe I just don't like the character of Stick, but I didn't like him in here. And the reason I say I don't like the character of Stick is because in the Daredevil Netflix show, I really hate every episode with Stick in it, even though he's portrayed completely differently. Yeah, I don't know.
I love him in that too. Scott Glenn in that. Oh man, because I was like, when they recast Stick, I was like, who's gonna play him? Oh, Scott Glenn. I like Scott Glenn.
This is getting off track, but in the Netflix series, he's just like unnecessarily crass, and I don't like people like that.
Such an a-hole.
It bugs me.
He's so mean.
Like, he's supposed to be like this dignified, like mentor figure, and he's just kind of a dick.
Yeah. Well, that was a thing too. I mean, when Daredevil 2003 came out, that I was looking for Stick because my introduction to Daredevil was the Spider-Man animated show from was it 94? And Daredevil was in that, and he met Spider-Man, and there was a backstory, and we met Stick that way, and that's the guy who trained Daredevil, as opposed to like he just kind of figures it out in the Ben Affleck movie. Yeah, it's like, oh, Stick shows up finally.
But no mention of Daredevil from Stick.
Yeah, the only thing we get, and it's good places I need to mention, there is a cameo, a Ben Affleck cameo, but it ended up on the cutting room floor for various reasons. I'm going to put a link to it in the show notes just because I think it's worth watching. But it's also aggravating because you're like, where's my Daredevil connection?
Which it blows my mind that they would cut a cameo by Ben Affleck. Like, you're gonna pay the man to show up for a cameo, and you're not even gonna put it in the movie. Come on.
And it's not even in the director's cut, which is weird.
Yeah. Like,
you have the option of doing that. So, any lines of dialogue though that you liked? I know that this is like maybe a harder pull for you since you didn't really like the movie, but there's a handful of things that I thought were kind of cool.
I can make stuff up. I can pretend to like things sometimes. I could tell you some that I really hated. Can we do that?
Hey, that's fine.
Hey, okay, you've been pointing out DeMarco, so here I go. So, DeMarco, I guess it's all true. The red outfit, the knives, what happens now? You just kill me, straight out. And then Elektra, don't worry, death's not that bad. Oh, solid writing, sir. How do you know? I died once. Oh my goodness, mind blown. That's so crazy. What? This is stupid. Anyway. Okay. Hang on, right, I'm not done. Don't usher me off the stage.
You got another one you hate?
So many. Death's not that bad once you get used to it. Oh my goodness. It's like maybe, to me it sounds like it was originally written in another language, and then they like put the whole thing through Google Translate, and it's like, wow, that was really deep in another language, but in English it sounds like garbage. Like it's supposed to be deep, right? Like this is some ancient mythical ninja stuff, and it's just so surface level. It's like if a fourth grader tried to write a narrative and the fourth grader tried to be deep.
Wow. Okay.
Anyway, go for it. You can usher me off stage now.
Okay. Well, I have a couple of things.
I'm gonna look through the lines here. I'm gonna find one I like, but go for it.
Okay. Well, I like Terrence Stamp in this a lot. I like Stick. So there's a couple of things I really like from him. one's just kind of cool and one's just kind of deep. I like where he says some lessons can't be taught, Elektra. They must be lived to be understood. I think that's kind of cool. And also, like, if you're paying attention, you see that Stick's actually the one who set up the hit on the Millers. Like, he's orchestrating all of this stuff, even though, he kicks her out and she's like, is this a test? He's like, no, it is. The whole thing is a test. He's the one putting her through the paces this whole time. He's trying to, to see what he's the one who sets up the hit.
How did I miss that?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
and then on the other side, I think just cool. So he's, our introduction to him when he's in the pool hall, and the guy says, "You're up, blind man," and he goes, "Double combo, triple carom on the 4-3-2-1-6 with the Bank Marseille." And the guy's like, "You don't need to call all your shots, Pops, just the first one." And he's like, "That is the first one," and then does it. Which I know some of those billiard balls are CGI, but he knocked in quite a few of them. But I just think that's just freaking cool that he's blind and taking guys' money at the pool. Why is he at the pool? I don't know why he's there. Other than, being a place where Elektra can find him. Did they set up that meet ahead of time? How does she know where to find him?
She has precognition, Craig.
Well, that's true.
Didn't you watch the movie?
He does too, because he's got he's got those same abilities. So,
you know what? I'm even I didn't pull any lines out while watching it, and I'm on IMDb right now. Full disclosure.
Yeah.
Just looking through the lines of dialogue, seeing if there's anything good, and it's like, you really kill people for a living, Elektra. Yeah, Abby Miller. Why?
That's messed up.
It's what I'm good at.
Yeah.
That's messed up. Yeah. Okay, if your dialogue has like 2 yeahs in it in a conversation, like maybe you're not doing something right. It's just, why doesn't it ever mention the wind while Elektra should be saying words?
No. I'm going to say some more things in praise of Jennifer Garner's performance from body language, though. I think the way she looks when she is expelled from the Chaste, that's the organization that Stick is in charge of, the Chaste, where she has that like unshed tears and lips just clamped down, like she's holding a cry. Like, she's not really crying. She didn't really get kicked out of there. I think it's some very solid acting, stiff upper lip kind of thing. But I also really I think that's fairly obvious, but I think a really subtle one is actually when she is invited by Abby to the Millers, and then she walks in and she realizes that the dad did not actually invite her. So she has this really stiff body language. You see her she turns her whole body to look at him. It's like, I was under the impression that I'd been invited. I think is just really cool and subtle and authentic.
I just think she has stiff body language the entire time.
Okay.
We
something
need Corey
else that
on
I
these
like.
podcasts, because
I know.
You think it's great, I think it's trash. Like, we need a tiebreaker here.
Something I didn't notice, I've seen this movie several times, but I didn't notice really until these couple of rewatches, is that you can see in at least one scene that she still has the scar from where Bullseye stabbed her. Like when she's swimming in the lake and then she pulls the shirt down over her, you can see it it's basically right in the middle of her chest, which is kind of interesting because, she's obviously, that's the thing that killed her, that they leave the scar. And so I liked that attention to detail.
But she does not have the scar on her neck, because didn't Daredevil slit her throat too with a card?
Yeah, with a playing card, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that'd be weird. That wouldn't look nearly as attractive. Aesthetics matter.
Continuity doesn't, though, so screw that.
Well, speaking of continuity, though, she does have the green contacts again, and that was one thing I was looking out for. Does she have that? I still don't think she has those in Deadpool and Wolverine, which I need to... I mean, most of her shots are in the dark, so I'm pretty sure she doesn't have the contacts in the latest thing. But she does here, which is comic accurate.
I do appreciate that, because I do think that adds... Like, if she just had brown eyes, that wouldn't be as intriguing of a character. Yeah. And as we know really from Big Trouble in Little China, green eyes are important.
Yeah, and very rare, especially in Asian women. Another thing that probably made this film cheap, is I'm going to move us down to setting design, is that filmed in and around Vancouver, Canada. I mean, a lot of productions, and that's where the X-Files filmed for years, because it's cheaper, they get tax breaks and whatnot. But I did like the lake house, full of windows. I thought that was a beautiful set. And I think it's kind of ironic because she has a lot to hide, but it looks like that if you're in a place like that, you have nothing to hide. So maybe that's hiding in plain sight. That's kind of what I'm going to pull from that.
Yeah, I don't think that was a laziness issue on part of the production crew or anything.
Yeah,
probably intentional.
Some of the things that again, I'm just going to refer to the the behind the scenes stuff because I think this is just a lot of fun. That's the thing I used to really enjoy doing, and enjoyed doing this to kind of just get some deep dives. Is the reason behind McCabe's farmhouse? He has like this beautiful Victorian farmhouse out in the middle of nowhere, and this is he's an agent for hit people. Is a lot of that's come from the characterization where they originally were going to hire Sam Shepard to be the actor, and he just kind of fit that vibe, and so you have this kind of dichotomy. It's very different, right? You would think that this guy would have like stainless steel everything and weapons hidden in all these different places or whatever, and he has some weapons, but it's a very intentional difference there.
Well, especially because that actor setting. Always. So he's the same actor that, for those of you familiar with him, he plays the mayor of Gotham in Christopher Nolan's Batman, and then he also plays Jacob in Lost. And he's like,
oh no, this is a different guy.
Wait, no, it's not. Is it?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is so embarrassing.
It's all
there
right.
are two actors that always look like they're wearing eyeshadow?
Yeah, this is Colin Cunningham. Yeah.
No. It is.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the guy who played it that's in Lost? What's his name? I can't remember.
Oh, we're talking about different characters.
Top. Yeah.
Okay, the farmhouse. Who are you talking about?
McCabe, her agent.
Oh, not Jacob in Lost. Dang it, Craig. Now you got me all confused. Who plays that like eternal guy in Lost? Spoilers.
Well, that's Jacob. He's not in this either.
No.
He's also in Supernatural. Yeah. It's skipping my brain right now. Can't remember his name.
Anthony Garcia.
Anthony Garcia?
Isn't that the guy? Oh my goodness. What is even true in my life? Frantically Googling over here.
No, Nestor Carbonell is the one that plays the mayor in the Christopher Nolan movies, and it's Richard Alpert.
No, Anthony Garcia.
I think you're thinking of somebody else.
I think you're thinking of somebody else. The one that gets blown up at the football game, the guy that looks like he's always wearing eyeshadow?
Yeah, that's Nestor Carbonell.
No.
Yeah, he's on Morning Show as well. Yep, that's him. So, while Justin figures that out, I'm going to talk a little bit more about set decoration. And the one, I think the only really Daredevil Easter egg that we have is that outside the pool hall, there is a red devil up in the graffiti.
I'm an idiot.
And that is not an accident because the camera lingers there.
Anthony Garcia is the character's name in Batman. I don't know how to read,
that
guys.
May be true.
It's fine.
That may be true. Thank you for that.
So Nestor Carbonell is not in Elektra?
Yeah. No.
So who plays the agent?
Colin Cunningham.
What the heck?
Some other things I liked set decoration wise is you have all of the white sheets all covering all the furniture that if you watch some of the extra stuff placed there by the servants the day of her mother's death. They've been there the whole time, like for years, decades probably. And I like how when the fight starts with Curie, they become almost like ghosts as she's kind of fighting memories of that as well.
Sorry, I'm still stuck on this. Colin Cunningham, Anthony Garcia.
It is.
Nestor Carbonell.
It's different guy.
It is indeed a different guy. Due to my extensive research, I can confirm there are two actors that look like they're wearing eyeshadow at all time.
Yes.
Okay, I lost respect for Nestor Carbonell, but it's regained because it wasn't him.
Okay. See if you can figure who's the guy that plays Jacob on Lost while we're...
See, I thought
our listeners are probably screaming at the screen right now. That's not Jacob, though. That's yeah.
Yeah, Jacob on Lost is also in Heroes. Yeah, it's Richard. Dang it.
Yeah, he's in a lot of things. In Supernatural plays Lucifer.
Mark Pellegrino.
That's him, Mark Pellegrino. Thank you. I just blanked on that.
Wow, we just lost
props-wise,
half our audience.
They stick around. They're good people. This is some Rite Aid products. It says some product placement. She gets a lot. Assassins shop at Rite Aid, apparently.
I mean,
it's a big bag of.
Think they're going to shop at Walgreens? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Think about it.
No. I do like that scene a lot where she arranges all that stuff really neatly because she's got OCD, which, as someone with some mild OCD, I think it's nice to feel represented. Don't you think, Justin?
I think OCD is represented a fair amount in cinema. I don't think that's one that,
especially with like killers and stuff,
is underrepresented. You know what kind of bugs me about that though? Okay, sorry.
What's that?
This has been a podcast full of tangents. My daughter has OCD, and it's kind of like a different form of OCD. Like, she doesn't have OCD with like arranging stuff, like is what people typically think about OCD. It's like obsessively admits things even if things did not happen. Like, she just feels like she's guilty of something, so she has to like continually talk about things she didn't do. Anyway, took her to the doctor, and the doctor was like unwilling to admit that that's what OCD was. This doctor was bad at his job because he's like, yeah, OCD is like when you have to make the picture straight, and if the picture's not straight, it drives you insane. I'm like, did you get your medical degree from movies? Like, what are you doing, my man? Anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
So apparently she has the movie version of OCD, which is a real version.
That's all we know is from watching movies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else prop-wise you want to talk about before we talk about characters?
The size. So she has the size from Daredevil, right? Same size.
Mm-hmm. I'm assuming.
Yeah, and I feel like she's pretty well versed in using the size in Daredevil, and then she somehow loses ability in this one. But again, that might go along with the choreography issue. Also, she breaks her sai at one point trying to stab the really tough guy, and then in the next scene they're totally fine. What's up with that? Continuity issues?
There's some of that is, and I think there's a deleted scene later on where she doesn't have the size before her final battle with Karigi, which is why she does the little flip through the well thing, which always kind of struck me as weird. Why she's doing that? Like, you could just run around it or whatever. There's some size buried in the ground on the other side that she grabs. It's an extended version of that scene that she'd buried there as a little kid. So,
okay, yeah. I'll allow it.
There's the sides are kind of coming and going. Yeah, I think some of that stuff is cutting room floor stuff.
Yeah,
which and that bugs me not as much after I heard Paul Hirsch, very famous editor who did Star Wars and many other things, talk about. I think I've talked about this on the show as well. That sometimes they're editing for emotional beats rather than consistency and props or hair or costumes or whatever. So it feels more natural, and that's the intention behind it.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Okay, wasn't a big deal. Like, who's to say she doesn't have multiple size in the theatrical version? Whatever. But yeah, just thought that was odd.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, we don't really see her getting another one, making a big deal out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just there to see, oh my gosh, this guy Stone, who's basically Luke Cage, but the bad guy version, broke one of them. That's his powers. Oh, he has the same power set.
Yeah, pretty much. Which I also have issue with because, if you guys remember, he fights Elektra in the forest. He hits a tree with a stick, and then the tree somehow splits in half and starts to fall over. And then he ends up dying because he ran parallel to the falling tree that he knocked over.
People do this all the time.
Yeah, but he knocked that tree over. Elektra did nothing to beat this guy. He beat himself. If she wasn't there, he would have died anyway.
It's a cool looking stunt, though.
Yeah, but she gymnastics up the tree and then runs up the tree, only to have the tree fall on the guy that was already going to die. Anyway, all right, cool. Yeah, cool.
All right.
So the movie can happen. Got it.
Yeah, so the movie can happen. I mean, I think we've talked about just about everybody, but I do want to just to shout out Kirsten Prout, who plays Abby Miller, who I think does a fine job. She was basically an unknown when this came out, and she has, I forget what belt she had, but she was like a prodigy. She was a legit prodigy in martial arts as well. So I think she did most of her own stunts and handles her business pretty well.
Yeah, she did pretty good.
I mean, she's supposed to play kind of an annoying character anyway. So, but she wasn't overly so. I mean, we both
there is
teach,
a scene
13
between,
and 14-year-olds, so that seems about right.
Like Jennifer Garner and Kristen Zen? I can't say her name.
Who are we talking about?
Who plays Abby?
Kirsten Prout.
Yeah. Okay.
Kirsten Prout.
Yeah, that's a tough name.
Yeah.
There was a scene between the two of them when Elektra is like trying to show her how to meditate. And that was one of the few scenes where I'm just like, okay, look, like this is like some real human connection. This is some like
it's a good
nice
scene.
Emotion. I liked that scene. I think we should have had more of those.
Yeah. Which kind of naturally leads me down to the hero's journey part, and that this is really, it's much more of a redemption story than it is an origin story. But you also, a key part of the hero's journey is that you have the quote-unquote hero becoming the mentor as the cycle continues. And so you see, it's more about Elektra becoming a mentor throughout this film. I mean, I remember, like, my initial takeaway on this film was I was disappointed that there was another, like, they kind of set up, let me put it this way, in the beginning that the treasure is Elektra. And we kind of can read between the lines that at one point she was, as Typhoid Mary at one point was, and now it's this girl, Abby. And so I was like, you're kind of taking away some of the spotlight from Elektra. But I think, that's the way they went. That's the story they chose to tell, was that Elektra is becoming this other version of herself, but part of that is becoming this mentor to this other younger character. And, there's lots of echoes between the two. I mean, like, their hairstyles look the same with the younger version of Elektra, and like they even show that really blatantly with coming up the steps after changing her hair color, and like she sees a lot of herself in Abby.
I did think it was weird that Typhoid, like, they had that one throwaway line that she's like, I used to be the treasure, and we don't really follow up with that. There's no lead up to that. I'm wondering why that one didn't end up on the cutting room floor, because that added nothing to anything.
Yeah, it kind of minimizes a lot of what the treasure is. It's like, it seems like it's like once in a generation, and seems like she's roughly the same age as Elektra. So if Elektra was, then how does that all work?
Yeah, like it's just jumping around.
One thing one of the deleted scenes that I really liked, and I guess it didn't really fit. It would have worked really well as a post-credit scene, which they hadn't. I mean, Marvel hasn't quite got into that. They're here and there. I think right now at this point we've only got Blade. Trinity has the post credits. X-Men Last Stand will have one. I think there's not any in between. But anyway, there's a deleted scene that has Stick and was it Roshi at the end, and they're playing a game, and they kind of talk about the events of the film and how, oh no, Abby's dead. And it's like, yeah, you're lying to me. And these guys have been kind of moving things around for generations, and so there is this overarching good versus evil thing, kind of going back to the beginning as well, with the whole narration about that, which I think kind of wraps up some of that stuff and would have been a really good opportunity to say there's a larger game, there's a larger universe at play, and get a little bit more of that mythology about what the treasure is and whatnot. So
I feel like we always ask this question at the end here, like, how does this fit into the larger? Obviously, it's not meant to be an MCU movie, but we're kind of like forcing it through these series of podcasts here. How does this fit in your mind? I think it fits perfectly fine. It doesn't break anything that the other films established.
Oh, agreed. The one thing we talked about a few episodes back was how we kind of had these two divergent paths where Daredevil and Punisher were kind of the more gritty, more grounded side, and then X-Men, Spider-Man, Blade were kind of in their own little thing here. This one's much more fantastical than Daredevil. There's a lot more supernatural stuff in it. And so it bridges those, I think, which is smart. And I think, all these characters could interact. I mean, we do literally see Logan and Elektra interact in Daredevil and Wolverine. It doesn't feel jarring that we have that. The marketing for this too is like it's from the team that made X-Men. That's not exactly what they say, but essentially they're saying, hey, the studio that made X-Men also made this. Like, you should be thinking of it in terms of the X-Men universe. This fits with that, and then you get
if they're trying to get
mutants and stuff too.
Closer to they're trying to get it closer to like some sort of interconnected universe. Yeah, they, like you said, they had to bridge that gap and make it more in line with X-Men and Spider-Man and more away from Daredevil and Punisher.
Yeah. Where this is clearly a spinoff from Daredevil. Daredevil, I would say, is a much more gritty film than this is, but it doesn't feel like it's so jarring that it doesn't fit in the same universe.
Yeah.
Or even Punisher. Especially, and I'm going to sound like a broken record with this, but the director's cut is a grittier film than this. Like, you do see like the blood from DeMarco at the beginning. You see Typhoid Mary actually you actually get to see it hit her. You get to see McCabe's head cut off. I say that sounds weird. You get to see the guy's head cut off. But these are scenes that like would move it from a PG-13 toward an R rating. So it's a little bit darker in that way. So, final thoughts then on Elektra. Has your opinion changed at all, or you still just hate this film?
Nope. I don't like it.
Okay.
I will probably never watch this film again, I can say with a fair amount of confidence.
There you go.
The end. I thought it was bad. If you enjoy Elektra as a character and you enjoy like the Daredevil side of comic books, go watch the Netflix show. All 3 seasons. All 3 seasons are solid, like fantastic, which has similar beats to this movie in terms of the treasure. They don't call it the treasure in the show, but it's kind of like the same idea where they're looking for like some prodigy, and it just does a better job.
Okay. I don't think it's a great film. I also don't think it's awful. I think it's pretty mid, as the kids say. I think actually it would have, you mentioned Netflix, I think that this would have been a pretty decent miniseries. I think you could have had them on the run. I think that would like maybe face down one of those villains at a time. I think there's meat on the bone for this. Maybe not the execution that it needed to have. There's a lot. I think there's a lot of missed opportunities in this, but I don't think it's awful. I think it's fine. But ultimately, I'm really glad we did get to see this character again in Deadpool and Wolverine. I think that was, for me, that was a lot of fun to be like, yeah, we're finally getting justice for this character, which I know a lot of people were huge Elektra fans and didn't get the movie that they wanted. And I don't think any of it was necessarily Jennifer Garner's fault that she didn't execute. Like you'd said, like you can only do what you can do on the page and with the costuming and whatnot. So that was nice to see that. Yeah, there is still some love for this movie and for that character and that iteration of this character.
I did Google some images of Deadpool and Wolverine and Elektra in there, and she does have very brown eyes. So no, they did not stick with the green.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay, good. Mystery solved.
Also, the mystery of that actor, who I thought was the same actor as this movie. Oh my goodness, I feel so stupid.
Yeah.
And
he's
normally I would say, hey, Craig,
provide.
can you edit that out? But I know he's not going to. So you're welcome, audience.
No, that's some valuable stuff there.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So glad you're back, Justin.
Nah.
And on that note, we just want to say thanks so much for listening. If you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on X, Instagram, and Facebook. Email us at readingbetweenreels@gmail.com or use the SpeakPipe app on our website. If you enjoyed the show, please like, follow, or subscribe and review us on iTunes or Spotify. Our next episode will be a review of Fantastic Four. Send us an email or voicemail about your favorite moments from Fantastic Four, and we'll share it on the next episode.